Dear Greg, a year ago my 12-year-old son was killed in a car accident. He was coming home late at night from a football game with my husband when a drunk driver crossed the road and hit their car head-on. My son died immediately, and my husband was in the hospital for 3 weeks. Later, they found out that the other driver had been charged 5 other times for drunk driving, and when he killed my son, he was driving without a license. This time he was charged with manslaughter, but because he was injured in the accident and the judge felt sorry for him, he gave him a suspended sentence of 5 to 10 years. How am I supposed to live with this? How do I sit here and live with the fact that this man is walking around free while my son is dead and will never walk anywhere again? Is that justice? I want to see this man punished for what he did.
Although I have an idea what a terrible loss this has been for you, no one could possibly know how much pain you have suffered because of this drunk driver's behavior. At this point, your grief must seem overwhelming, and nothing I say will magically make it go away. I would not be so arrogant to presume that I could. In addition to the pain of your loss, there's an awful sense of unfairness. You did nothing to bring any of this upon you, and yet, out of nowhere, this man made choices that just took your son out of this life and away from you. Between your grieving and the sense of unfairness, you are in a lot of pain. Although I don't presume to try to make this pain disappear, because you've asked me, I will offer you some perspectives on this situation that are different from the ones you have now. And if you're willing to listen, you will feel quite differently in a relatively short period of time. When we can see something differently, we can feel differently about it, and we can then behave differently toward it. First, let's talk about fairness. Was it unfair that this drunk driver took your son from you? Yes and no. It was unfair in that it was undeserved. You certainly didn't cause this to happen, but our sense of fairness is determined by our perspective. A young child thinks anything is unfair if it personally inconveniences him or her. Homework is unfair. Cleaning her room is unfair. But as parents, we have a broader perspective, don't we? When a child complains about taking out the garbage, saying that it's unfair that he has to take out garbage of other people, garbage that he didn't generate, he might actually have a small point to make from one tiny perspective in a small moment in time. But we can see that in the larger and longer scheme of things, there is no injustice involved. We can see that the child must learn his role in the functioning of the family as a whole, and that he must also learn a sense of responsibility and of selflessness. So we might even smile when a child complains that such a task is unfair. And so it is with the loss of your son. In this moment, from your perspective alone, it might seem unfair that he could be taken from you. But there are far greater principles involved, as well as perspectives that involve every human being on the planet. We live in a world, a universe, where we have the ability to make our own choices. We learn from these choices. And in the process, we find genuine happiness. In the process of making choices, we inevitably make mistakes that have negative effects on other people. And there is no other way we could possibly learn. The price we pay for living in a world where we can make our own choices and learn and grow is that we also have to live with the choices of other people, including the foolish, stupid, and harmful ones. Now, this doesn't justify the behavior of the drunk driver. I only make the point that the greatest gift of this life is the ability to make our own choices. And the preservation of our ability to make these choices is the ultimate justice. Now, this does not mean that when we make bad choices, like the drunk driver did, that we don't have to pay the price for them. We do. And we'll talk more about that in our next session.